All right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Pop Culture Cosmos, the Lakers Fast Break, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone listening to all of our great shows and also watching it on all of our great YouTube channels as well. It's going to be an interesting episode. We've got a lot to talk about. The Last Dance is over. Practices may be beginning sometime in the near future. And there's some dinero involved here that the Lakers really, they put their hands in the piggy bank, and unfortunately, they got it smacked and had to return it. We'll talk about that here in a sec. But first, I wanted to go ahead and introduce my guest. It's our weekly chat right here on the Lakers Fast Break with my good friend. I know him as Tom Wong, but you know him as the guy behind the great site, Lakerholics.net. Be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.net. I'm so excited to talk to him one more time. LakerTom, just so great to have you on the show.
Yeah, it's always fun to be here talking with you, Gerald, and getting an opportunity to talk about one of the things that I love in my life, which is the Lakers.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Lakers Fast Break has been doing really well as of late. We've gotten a lot of episodes out there. I cannot thank everyone enough to not only listening to our chat last week about a lot of great Lakers subjects, but also the tremendous lineup of NBA draft shows, including our very highly rated NBA mock draft, which I had with 4 great draft experts last week. The Barlow brothers from NBA Draft Junkies, Michael Weisenberg from the Stepien, and also Stone Hansen from DraftSide.com. You got to check out that great mock draft if you haven't already. It's on the Lakers Fast Break and now on the Pop Culture Cosmos channels as well. And, speaking of Stone Hansen, the last podcast before this one, I had a chance to sit down with Stone Hansen. We talked a lot about, we talked a lot about what's coming up in the future, i.e. 2021, about some of the prospects there. So here are his thoughts on some of the rising prospects in the 2021 draft right here on the Lakers Fast Break channel as well. But my friend, there is a lot to talk about today, but I got to go ahead and start off with the Lakers in trouble. A bad PR move, shake my head, SMH, all the whole 9 yards, because really, I'm going to start it off like this. The Lakers recently returned $4.6 million from a loan that they borrowed under the most recent loan forgiveness plan, the loan plan that was from the Small Business Administration, the Paycheck Protection, the Small Business Program that was enacted as part of the government's recent passing, not only once but twice, in regards to helping save small businesses. And unfortunately, the Lakers saw this money out there and they decided to get their share of it. Now, mind you, the Lakers, they are valued, as far as Forbes, as recently as this year, they're number 2 in the entire NBA at $4.4 billion. Okay, this is a company that's $4.4 billion, yet was able to, get this, go ahead and seek out a $4.6 million loan. That, to me, is just a travesty. I don't know who did that. I don't know if Jeannie accepted that or tried to go ahead and get that herself, or whoever applied for it, if that was on their own volition or whatnot. If it was, I'd fire them immediately, because the PR hit from this is going to be at least lasting for a little while, especially because nobody else has anything to talk about right now in sports now that the NFL draft is over. So I ask you, LakerTom, if, as someone who's, held executive positions before, what is going on? This mentality is just really bad. I mean, all these companies that are out there, the restaurants, Ruth Chris, Shake Shack, those big, large companies that are sustainable in and of themselves, I understand they're hurting, but this is for small businesses. I repeat, small businesses. Not a company that's valued at $4.4 billion like the Lakers.
Well, it was really a sad thing to see that happen, Gerald. And embarrassing and humiliating, if you ask me, for the Lakers. It's a reflection, not only a bad reflection on the judgment of whatever executive with the Lakers that made the decision to pursue that, as well as probably their bank that was probably jumping up in arms. And a lot of the banks have jumped in to try to get their best customers a piece of this pie, very often at the cost of the people who really need it, which is the small businesses that have 4 or 5 employees. Now, by definition, the Lakers qualify because they're a small business that is got less than 500 employees. And just like Ruth Chris and Shake Shack and all of these different restaurant chains that were out there, it's a reflection of what happens when the government makes stupid moves, and basically goes out there and sends a program out there with very, very few guidelines and controls to prevent abuses from happening. And the only result, the positive we've gotten about this whole thing is that they then turned around and after the first 2.2 billion was gone, they just put out another 4.6 billion with no other additional requirements, the exact same requirements as the first time. And the only thing that's holding people back now from going in and jumping at is that there is, I think, 60 billion designated for minority loans and 60 billion dedicated for really small businesses. But still, the bulk of it is going to be administered, and the real culprits in this situation have been the banks, the big banks, because they basically have prioritized all of their major customers. The saddest part about the entire thing is these are not really loans. They're basically designed to be forgiven as long as the companies use that money to pay their employees. And so the net result is these are basically grants that are being given out there.
That's what I was going to say. They just grants given. It basically, like you said, if they pay their employees, then basically it's free cash.
Yep. And the problem is that these should have been limited to businesses that had no other alternatives for financing. Public companies, for God's sakes, if you're a public company, you're large enough, you have experience, you have advisors and so forth, and you have connections to capital that the average small business just doesn't have. You know, the guy who's just got a loan from the bank and maybe doesn't even have a loan, just has a depository account where he's putting his money in and withdrawing, writing checks on that account and so forth. So it's the type of thing where you see the Republicans were basically pushing hard to get this out right away to help people. And the net effect is that there wasn't enough time to really go through and make careful judgments on some of the things that are happening.
And this is part of the Paycheck Protection Program,
right? But it was part of that big. It was part of that great big overall
stimulus package.
Stimulate the economy and get things going. And
but the first $250 billion that ran out like that.
Yep.
And then I think another 450 or something like that billion on top of that. That went out just like that. And with the Lakers, you know, greed just kicked in. Greed kicked in. That's all you can say was greed when it comes to this. This is, again, a $4.4 billion company. I love the Lakers just as much as anyone out there. But, I'm going to call this – I'm going to call it like it is. This was
wrong. I agree with you 100%.
Yes. This is wrong on so many levels. And only – and here's the statement. The official statement makes it even worse. The official statement from the Lakers – that they, yes, they qualified and received a loan under the Payroll Protection Program. However, once we found out the funds from the program had been depleted, we repaid the loan so that financial support would be directed to those most in need. So if you didn't get caught, or if you didn't find, if the funds had not run out, you would have kept that money. That's the official statement from the Lakers right there. And that to me is just disturbing that they should have even not even went ahead and did that at all. But the fact is that they took money away, and only when they found out that all the money was gone, they decided to go ahead and then give their $4.6 million back.
Well, they weren't first in line to give the money.
No, I didn't say that we're first in line.
That's the other side of it is that, listen, I'm at least grateful if they had enough ethical character to give the money back, because there's a whole bunch of companies out there, public companies with values in the multi-million, hundreds of millions of dollars, who didn't give the money back. And the government really should be doing something to demand that they give that money back. And it's this whole. There's a point in time when you have a crisis such as the world and America is undergoing right now, where you've got a virus that is killing almost 60,000 people and over a million, almost a million now infected in the United States. And things like we have tools to fight against that, such as the Defense Production Act and so forth, where the government can force companies, just like they did during World War II, to build tools for war, to build airplanes and so forth. And yet our government won't do that simply because they're protecting certain sets of people who have donated money to their causes, and they want to make sure that these people can make a profit off of the pandemic that the rest of us are going through. And it's just a sad state of affairs to see how politics in this country has gotten to a point where you won't go and do the things that are right for the country, and you've got states now being gouged just to buy simple things like swabs and simple things like personal protection equipment for their workers and for the healthcare people.
And I understand, LakerTom, it's a free-for-all. I get that. It's like the Wild Wild West, and it's deplorable. It's absolutely disgusting.
It is deplorable.
That these states have to bid against themselves. Every other country in the world right now that's semi-organized at this point in time are leagues ahead of what we're doing, because it's a disaster, and I get that. But let's go focus back on the Lakers before we go off on another soapbox rant. So I wanted to actually say this again with the Lakers. This is a team that if it needs cash, it can get cash.
Yeah,
equity sharing. It can go ahead to the banks. It can go ahead to partners.
You can borrow that money in an instant from any bank in the country.
It could sell shares to anybody it wants to, because there's going to be a lot of takers if it starts to sell off shares. So don't give me that you can't find money. You wanted to go ahead and do that. They wanted a $4.6 million handout, and I think it's just it's one of the worst. This is good. This has got to be one of the worst times I'm in my own mind that I'm saying I'm a Lakers fan, because I still will be a Lakers fan till the day I die, and I will still be someone who bleeds purple and gold. But there's been very few times in my life where I've even come close to saying I'm ashamed to be a Lakers fan, and it usually means because Boston's beat us or something like that. This is not that time. This is one of the few times that I've said this is really bad.
Yeah.
This and the bus fiasco. When the family fiasco over and over, and they were having those issues. It was really kind of disheartening at that point in time for Lakers fans. But this is so much worse. This is just bad, bad, bad. People are thinking, they returned the money.
I'd like to find out who made the decision.
Yeah, I'd like to find out who did, because
I agree with you that somebody should lose their job for having made such a bad decision.
Because and people that are listening to this, Laker fans out there, are probably saying, "Why are we making such a big deal?" Because they're small, like you said, LakerTom, at the earlier part of the show. There are small business out there struggling to survive that need this money more than the Lakers do. Yes, the Lakers have a lot of employees that they have to go ahead and pay, and that they should pay. And I'm not trying to dissuade that, but they have other means to go ahead and pay those employees. They also have money in the bank. It's not like they're broke. Don't tell me they're broke. They are they have been a well-run, for the most part, outside of the bus fiasco.
But more revenue than any other franchise in the league.
Exactly. And they're valued, like I said, number 2 behind the Knicks.
Right.
And I still don't know to this day, outside of being in New York, why the Knicks are still number 1 valued. But okay, that house fire. Just
TV contracts.
I know it's all about TV and money, but I'm just saying, just the thought of this dumpster fire for going on decades now with the Knicks, and they're still number 1. It's all about MSG. It's all about MSG.
What's fascinating is we haven't heard about any other NBA or professional sports team.
Oh, I'm sure
we're going to dip their toes into this situation.
I'm sure it's going to leak out sooner rather than later. As soon as Adrian Wojnarowski or Shams Charania or one of those insiders, Mark Stein or whatnot, can go ahead and delve into it even further. But yeah, very disappointed with the Lakers. I'm glad that they returned the money, but that's only after they found out it was depleted, which to me is still, again, a very bad move.
Yep. Can't
Well, if
defend
you
it in
got,
any way and form.
say again. I'm sorry.
You can't defend that decision in any way or form. It
No.
was just a wrong move. And Jeannie Buss, or somebody who really officially speaks for should come out and explain how it happened and make sure that nothing like this happens again. I mean, it's like highway robbery for all of those people, and a lot of those people couldn't even get their loan applications in.
That's right.
Because the big banks had already flooded it and filled up almost everything with their own personally private, I mean, one of the big things you want to do in any small business, and the businesses that I run, is to develop strong relationships with your bank so that you are in that position. But a lot of times that takes being able to have a good enough balance sheet so that you can borrow money. And a lot of small businesses don't have that. A lot of small businesses are living on not necessarily paycheck to paycheck, but big deal to big deal, or one good month of sales and so forth.
Yeah.
And you're struggling, and we talk about how important small business is to this country, because they're the people who really keep things going, and they're the ones that are really hurting at this point in time. You got to furlough employees. It's great if you can get one of these PPP loans, because then you can furlough your employees, pay their salaries, use the money from the loan to pay their salaries. And as long as you do that, that loan will be forgiven. And it's something that could have kept, and hopefully now the 4.6 million back, plus all of the money that Shake Shack and all these other companies have given back, will hopefully be given to people who really need it. The only problem is we're already starting to hear bad things about the way it's being run again, that there's people can't get their loan applications in and so forth.
Well, all
of the things that are happening.
Well, like you were saying earlier, there is a larger issue. There are a lot of mistakes, a lot of loopholes that were created because they rushed this out. And this, even if you could rush these things out, you can rush these things out, but still make sure it's thoroughly taken care of. All the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, and it just didn't get done. But then again, like I said, that's another soapbox for another day. They want to go ahead and talk about other great things. But again, the Lakers, they did return the money. I'm just very sad that they went ahead and did this. And, greed sometimes in our society just overcomes all. And in this case, it did with the Los Angeles Lakers. Hopefully they will learn from this lesson. Hopefully, LeBron won't be the one to have to speak out, because if he speaks out, it's not going to be in the way the Lakers would like.
Nope.
Yeah, let's hope for this to be done in the right way from this point forward, and the Lakers will definitely learn their lesson going forward. Well, my friend, speaking of LeBron, you had a lot to say about LeBron in some recent articles on your Medium.com site, and I've got some issues with LeBron as well when it comes to not any issues because of Taco Tuesday or anything like that, but his name keeps getting popped up in The Last Dance. But we'll save that for a little bit. I want to go ahead and talk to you about the evolution of LeBron's acceptance as a Laker, because as you know, when he was first signed, or when the first rumors were out there that he might be headed towards the Lakers, even as he was still playing for the Cleveland Cavaliers, a lot of Lakers fans were just saying, I don't want any piece of that.
Yeah, I actually just wrote a piece for Medium called How a Tried and True Kobe Bryant Stan Became a Diehard LeBron James Fan. And I was one of those guys. I was one of those people that
You didn't want any of that. You didn't want any of that at all.
I didn't want any of that. I mean, I saw how LeBron had acted down in Miami, promising 3, 4, 5, 6 championships and so forth. I saw how when he went back to Cleveland, it was 1-year deals, which had basically held a hatchet over the Cavaliers management. Basically decided who this coach was going to be, decided who the general manager was going to be. Had them give big long-term contracts to several of the people who were members of Clutch Sports, his agency that his good friend runs. And so basically, I really felt like you're turning your whole franchise over to LeBron James if you go and pursue him. And then Magic Johnson goes out there and he recruits him, and all we hear are the various stories that LeBron's not interested in winning anymore. And even though he signed a 4-year deal, there was all this talk that it was all based upon being able to see his son play in Southern California, to looking at his post-career thing, wanting to be a mogul. And basically it wasn't a basketball decision. And then last year, we got off to a pretty good start with a team that really wasn't really built well around LeBron, because it was all of that young talent that wasn't developed at a championship level that the Lakers had to surround him with. And then, we were doing pretty good up until Christmas Day, and he pulls a groin and has the first major injury that he's had in his entire career. And then tries to come back, but really is not 100%. And so basically they shut him down for the year. We end up finishing 35-47, an extremely disappointing year, the 6th year in a row that we don't make the playoffs. And you're looking and you got a 35-year-old LeBron James for the next season. The franchise is in a total disaster. You've got Magic Johnson resigning the day before the final game of the season. You got the coach fired shortly after that. Screams of dysfunction and dismay going on. And the Lakers appeared to be doomed at that point in time. And I think that point was sort of like the lowest point you could have imagined, that here was the Lakers with LeBron James, but they were considered to be a disaster, and nobody even thought they were going to make the playoffs the next year. We all know what happened at that point in time. Jeannie Buss resisted all of the cries for firing Rob Pelinka and going out and bringing in a new general manager outside of the organization. But she held firm. She really liked Rob. She believed in Kobe Bryant, who basically said Rob Pelinka is the right guy. And within 6 months, the franchise had been turned around. A little bit of good fortune, and they ended up with Frank Vogel as the head coach. They forced him to hire a couple of guys that were a lot of writers thought were not going to be good fits as assistant coaches. Lionel Hollins and Jason Kidd. But in the end, it really turned out to be a perfect situation, because Vogel's turned out, I think, to have been the type of guy that's sort of a consensus-oriented manager. He's a guy who really likes to invite participation by everybody. And he sort of formed a partnership, a 4-person partnership between Vogel and Pelinka and the 2 superstars, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And the Lakers turned things around. And all of a sudden, we go into a situation where right before the coronavirus outbreak forced the league to suspend the season, when the Lakers were clearly the best team in the league, and LeBron James was clearly the best player in the league still at 35 years old. So I think during that period of time, there were 2 major events that really crystallized for me LeBron James taking over the mantle that Kobe Bryant had. The first was that Saturday when he set a record for being the 3rd most points scored in the NBA and passed Kobe Bryant. That evening, Kobe put a phone call into LeBron to congratulate him on it, and it was like a perfect passing of the torch from one generation superstar to the next generation superstar. The next morning, if you will, we have the tragedy of the helicopter crash that killed Kobe, his daughter Gianna, and 7 other people on that flight. And you have all of the events that followed that tragedy, where LeBron James really stood up, and all of a sudden you could see that a guy who I had gained a lot of respect over the years, more for the man that he was than the basketball player he was, to be honest. The things that he'd done for his community and starting the I Promise School, things like that really made me bury any hatchet that I'd ever had for him as a protagonist against Kobe Bryant, my favorite player. But I thought that the way that LeBron handled himself and took over leadership of the Lakers during that crucial time right after Kobe's death That really cemented in me that the LeBron James really bled purple and gold. He really wasn't there for his legacy. He was there to win for the Lakers. He really wasn't there just for business purposes or to watch Bronny, his son, play in high school basketball. He was there because he believed in the Lakers as a franchise. He believed in the legacy of the Lakers, and he wanted to contribute to that legacy and take over the challenge that Kobe had left for him. And so that's basically how I evolved, in a lot of people. I mean, we had a lot of conversation on Lakerholics.net about everybody on the blog and how they had at various points in times had come around to love LeBron James as much as they loved Kobe Bryant.
That's true. I mean, he's done a whale of a job, just done an incredible job for us, especially this season. And, I think I was a little bit more accepting because I was just so tired of losing. I was going to take any type of influx I can get. So hearing LeBron James was even thinking about coming to the Lakers was something, I just didn't mind at all. I thought that was really cool. And then obviously it's paid off, big time once he kept his health, once he was able to stay on the court for full season, and just seeing him on the floor perform the way he does, even at his age, is still remarkable to see. I'll tell you right now, LakerTom, I think that we can get another season or two at an extremely high level from LeBron. That would be, through finishing his contract, that would be one of the best 4-year contracts we have ever signed as a free agent. If we can get any kind of contribution similar to what we're seeing this season from LeBron in the next 2 seasons, or if he stays through the end of the contract, that's just would truly be amazing. And I think you can, even if they don't get a title this year, I think you could put them in title contention for the next 2 to 3 years, as long as he remains a part of the team. Although, with Bronny coming around, you never know what's going to happen.
Well, what's interesting about the whole thing is that part of the it was hard to everybody compared LeBron to Kobe, and that was just incessant every year. It was really hard to win those war of words with people, especially when LeBron was winning 3 out of 6 championships and the Lakers and Kobe weren't even getting into the playoffs. And then, so there was a period of time where I started to lose a lot of the, not necessarily the love, but just the intense desire to protect Kobe and to defend him against everybody. Primarily because I thought during the last few years that he became more of a selfish player. He became less of a hero because the team wasn't winning and he couldn't carry him through to win. And in the contract, which really, really ate up a lot of the Lakers' resources and ability to go out and bring in another star, because they gave Kobe that legacy contract at the end. That really limited the franchise. And Kobe was never a guy who'd accept less than the maximum amount of money. And then meanwhile, LeBron is really, the 3 years after Kobe retired, LeBron said something that really stuck with me. He said, "I don't think I've ever seen Kobe as happy as he was the last 3 years when he retired." And a lot of that was because of having time at last to spend with his daughter and his other kids. And you saw a maturation of Kobe and over those 2 or 3 years, where the scowling superstar who basically nobody wanted to play with, at least in the lexicon of some of the critics, all of a sudden became a beloved superstar who, was supporting women's basketball and was a perfect girl dad, if you will. And then at the same time, I look at the same situation happening with LeBron James, because from that smart ass kid that made the promise when he went down to Miami that he was going to win all of these championships and so forth, and the guy who just kept getting coach after coach fired and so forth, when he got to the Lakers, he was a different man. He really was a different man, because he and Frank Vogel have never had a single conflict along the way.
Getting Coach Ryan, he kind of was one of the main reasons for Luke Walton not being there. Let's just put that way.
Yeah, yep. But on that same token, Luke never really devised an offense or a prioritization that really helped LeBron, and it's partly because you had all of these young players you're trying to develop too, and you needed them to develop, or else you weren't going to compete with LeBron. So it's a combination of a lot of things coming. Just like everything in life, things are never as simple black and white as you think they are. They're usually a combination of things and a lot more complicated. Frank Vogel coming along, Rob Pelinka bringing in a team of veterans to surround LeBron who were much better fitters. He fixed all of the poor choices that Magic Johnson had made in building a roster around LeBron. And so it made things a lot easier for everybody to be on the same page, because people were brought in who fit those roles that needed to have people fit in order for the organization to be simpatico all the time. But the other side of it is that LeBron was there for a change. He was there for making a commitment to the Lakers, and once the Lakers got all of their ducks in a row, you could see a different LeBron James than what we saw in Cleveland or what we saw in Miami. And also, I think, silver linings. Having that injury, having to sit out a lot of that season, and having a whole summer off, that rejuvenated LeBron, and he came back, and then the addition of Anthony Davis, who challenged him to be, let's come back to play defense now, LeBron. Let's not do this taking time off on defense just so you can play offense. And so all of a sudden you had all of these pieces come together, and I give a lot of the credit of that to Rob Pelinka and Frank Vogel, as well as LeBron and AD, and the guys that they surrounded him with. KCP coming back and having a stellar year after being overpaid for 2 or 3 years there. Avery Bradley coming back and proving himself. Dwight Howard reclaiming himself from the dregs of a career. You go down the list, JaVale McGee, one after another, you had a lot of players who really had a lot to prove. And there's nothing that beats succeeding in life by being put in the right place at the right time. And all of these Lakers players benefited from that. And the net result is LeBron gets a great deal of the credit, because the superstar can either make or break the situation on any team. And LeBron was at a point in his career where he really embraced it. And when you look at some of those videos of the Lakers chemistry, the way that the players loved each other, loved playing with each other, cared so much about each other, and how that all evolved during the season, then you can really understand how perfect timing was. It was just a perfect situation for them, a perfect storm of good fortune and good decisions that pulled them around. You just hope something like this decision on the PPP money is not going to be a sign of, hopefully it's just an outlier of just a dumb move that somebody made, and we won't see more of that. But we're still at a crucial point, because LeBron's got a couple of years left on his contract. AD is a free agent this summer. And the Lakers are faced with a major decision. It's not like they're the Golden State Warriors at the start of a 6-year run where they've got 3 superstars under contract and nothing but good times ahead. The Lakers have got major decisions staring them in the face. They need to find a third superstar for the team, or at least a third star. They need to find out how much more LeBron is going to be able to play. And at some point in time in the near future, they need to find a second superstar to go with AD once LeBron is retired. And hopefully they can leverage the opportunity to win and play with LeBron in order to get that third superstar. I think that's the big question marks that are facing them, and they're going to have to do it at a time when the coronavirus pandemic has really changed everything for the NBA and for professional sports going forward, as well as for our economy and our society. There's a new normal that's going to happen in the world, and there's going to be a new normal in the NBA. And the Lakers have a big challenge in trying to figure out how to get to the next level.
That they are. They're going to have a big challenge coming up. Hopefully they can go ahead and complete the season, which we'll talk about here at the end of the show. But it is going to be a very great challenge indeed for the Lakers coming up once they get back onto the court. And I'm looking forward to it, and I know you are as well.
Yep.
Well, speaking of LeBron, his name has come up quite a bit recently, and not because of the Lakers returning $4.6 million or obviously what you're talking about as far as his career overall and the great articles that you wrote on medium.com, but it's come up because of The Last Dance. And The Last Dance basically basically it's a documentation of 4 episodes that was put on by ESPN and NBA Entertainment about the final championship winning season for the Chicago Bulls and all the trials and tribulations, all the personalities, all the players and Phil Jackson involved, and talking about Rodman and Pippen and all the crazy stuff that they did. And of course, Michael Jordan at the center of it all. But while we're watching this, or while people are watching this out there, and there are millions and millions of people that have watched this, it's been getting great ratings for ESPN, is that on social media, especially on Lakers fan sites, I know on Lakerholics.net, but also on the Lakers sites that I'm also advertising on, and thank them so much for their support on great Facebook groups that are out there. They're all talking whether or not LeBron, had he been in that era, would have been just as good or better than Michael Jordan. And I know we've always talked about how you really can't compare eras. You can only judge, or based off the eye test, what you think they would do, whatnot. It's funny because if Wilt Chamberlain were to play in this time frame, would he be a different player? Shaq were to be in this time frame, would he be a different player? If Shaq would have been in Wilt Chamberlain's time, there's so many different things you can say. Steph Curry, if he would have been playing in the early 90s, would have been a different player, things of that nature. So all I can say is this. LeBron at his height, 6'8", 275, 280 when he was younger, when he had a bigger frame, a larger frame that he could handle. I mean, I think he was about 6'8", 280, correct? Yeah, in and about there. I think at that frame, with the size, with the mobility, with the agility, with the speed, with the ball handling, and even earlier in his career in Miami, when at this height of being able to be efficient with the three-pointers, because that's when he was really efficient with the three-pointers, was in Miami. That's a deadly combination right there. That's probably the best of LeBron. I mean, people argue when was the best LeBron, Cleveland, Los Angeles, or Miami. I'm saying on paper, statistically, I think the Miami years were probably the best. And if that's the case, you get that LeBron on the same floor in the 90s as Jordan, and you get him a competent team around him. I don't know. It would be up for debate, but I think I would put my money on LeBron.
I think I'd put my money on him too. I've always been.
Rodman is a great defender. Rodman would have been guarding him and just great. Right. And also, Rodman was one of the best passers at the forward position of all time. People don't realize that. People forget about that. They think about his rebounding, box out artist, defender, whatnot. If you saw him, especially in that 1 year with the Lakers, the things he could do as far as passing to anybody cutting was just truly brilliant. But getting back to LeBron, I know Rodman would be guarding him, but even if that's the case, I think LeBron is just at this point. So would have been at that point in the 90s would have been something unlike anything else.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. There was one of the guys, one of the main announcers or sportscasters, basically was saying that LeBron couldn't handle himself in the 80s, and I think that he's absolutely crazy. I mean, and I also think that all of those various other things you give, when you look at a top 10 player, you can probably take any top 10 player in the game of basketball today, historically, whether it's Steph playing 25, 30 years ago when the rules were different, whether it's Wilt playing today, LeBron playing in the Michael's era, Michael playing today, any of those guys are still going to be superstars. they're going to be, and that's why I think it's so hard to make these comparisons between different generations. I think the hardest thing probably is for centers, just simply because of the way the game has changed and the way that the center position has changed so dramatically, and with a 3-point shot. Those are two different eras, and that's a rule change that makes such a dynamic difference that it's hard to judge that. You look at a guy like, I saw an article, we had an article that when we were talking about in LakerHolics.net, which is Sean, one of our directors, basically had done a bunch of, is doing some things called Just the Facts, and Sean basically was saying that Anthony Davis is a far better defender than Rudy Gobert. And the simple truth of it is because he can defend all 5 positions. Whereas you get a guy like Gobert, you can put him on the bench if you've got a stretch 5 who can go out there and kill you from deep, or a guy who even from deep can attack the rim and go in there and score. And Davis is one of the few players who can really defend those positions, both of them. I don't have a single doubt that LeBron James and Michael Jordan would have be incredible things, just the same as I thought if you took Magic Johnson in his prime rather than the end of his career and put him up against Michael, it's the same type of debate. They would both be among the top 2 or 3 players in the league at any era that you'd chosen. They're different. There's a big difference though in those players, and the difference is basically that Jordan and Kobe were basically shoot-first players. Their entire careers were shoot-first players. LeBron, Magic Johnson, those guys were pass-first players their entire career. Even though LeBron is scored the 3rd most points in the NBA, he's never been a guy who would just wanted to take the last shot for the sake of taking that last shot, whereas other guys. And then there's the oddities of guys like Wilt, who at the start of their career were a shoot every time I touch the ball player, but yet later in his career he decided, okay, this year I'm going to want to be the best rebounder, or this year I'm going to be the best shot blocker, or this year I'm going to lead the league in assists. And you find guys that have a talent like that, but when you look at their nature, and I did an article for Medium that really was comparing what LeBron James' last dance would look like today, and his last dance may happen in the next 3 or 4 years. And I think what the gist of the article was saying is that Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant never, ever would take less than the max contract. Even in their final year on the court, they would never accept less than the maximum amount they could get. If the Lakers want to bring in a superstar to replace LeBron and to complement Anthony Davis as the franchise moves forward without LeBron, the only way that they can do that, even before the drop in the salary cap as a result of the coronavirus, the only way they can do that is if LeBron accepts less than a max contract on his next contract. And I really believe that that's going to be the last dance that LeBron is going to show the difference between the shoot first Michael and Kobe, and he's actually going to accept less than a max contract in order for the Lakers to make an offer for Giannis at the maximum amount, should he be available. Or if Giannis is not available, whoever else is available at that point in time, who could then become the co-superstar with Anthony Davis once LeBron is gone. So there's a big difference between trying to compare Michael Jordan and LeBron James. I think that they both have something for their legacy, but there's a certain attitude that Kobe had and Michael had that LeBron doesn't have. He doesn't necessarily have to take and make the last shot. And I think that that's going to result in there being a transition in the Lakers that's going to end up with somebody sensational playing alongside Anthony Davis once LeBron James is retired.
Well, that argument will continue on forever within the minds and hearts of NBA fans all over who is the better player. In fact, when it comes to LeBron and his greatness, I rarely see him ever put at that number 1 or number 2 level. I always see him like, oh, LeBron's put a little bit here, top 5, and then maybe even top 10. I never see him by so many people out there put him at a level where I think he should be deserving of, and that is, right in that top 3. You mix in that top 3, whoever you want, but I think he should always be thought of in that realm, because no one has ever had the physical attributes that he has had the impact on his game. Very few have had that, especially in modern times. No one in this century has had the impact that he has. And yes, he has not gone to the finals and fared very well overall, and that will probably be the most remembered for him. If he'd have won the majority of his titles, I would think he would probably be thought of at a level that's consistent with Michael Jordan's. But Michael Jordan has his titles, and
Michael didn't have the competition.
Well, hold on. But LeBron didn't. LeBron didn't have the team. He didn't have the players for many of those years. Basically, on a lot of teams, I could honestly say he was carrying them on his back. But again, it comes down to what people perceive. And even though that argument will rage on and on and on, even after he retires for many years down the line, LeBron, I don't think will ever be given his due. And I don't say that just as the fact that he's playing well now. Mm-hmm. In fact, he is playing well now, and that should be part of his legacy. I mean, by now, a lot of these players that we talk of in that list that we saw, Kobe for one, because Kobe seems to be, especially after his passing, be thought of in such high regard. He should always be thought in high regard. But now some fans out there just thinking he's the greatest of all time and things of that nature, and they're commenting on that, which is fine, which is great, and it's a great tribute to him. But in reality, at this point in time, you see a lot of these players that are thought of in that top 10 all time, whether it's Wilt, Kareem, Magic, Bird, whoever. By this time, at this age, you saw a deterioration in their play, even Jordan. But yet LeBron is at a level that's an MVP, worthy of an MVP if you don't vote for Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I tell you, man, the argument will continue to wage on, but I think LeBron needs to be a larger part of that argument.
I think what's going to happen, and this is maybe where you and I differ, I think that LeBron is greatly underappreciated right now. But I think once his career is over, and it could be 4 or 5 more years before that career is over, once that career is over, I don't have a doubt in my mind that he's going to be elevated to be the GOAT as far as most
I do. I always will, because people will still have, the decision fresh in their minds. People will still have these things.
I don't know.
And the thing is, LeBron does not have any, skeletons in the closet. He just has these things that he did out in public, and the things and how he's been able to speak to the media, and some of the things that he said in the media. Those are the only things that you could say are for or against him.
But that was a young LeBron. The older LeBron is the guy who opened the I Promise school. He's the guy who's taken over Kobe's mantle and
exactly,
and love it as a Laker.
And people forget that because people want to focus on the decision. They also want to focus on some of the things he said in regards to the China, in regards to I can't play in empty arenas. People will find and nitpick anything they want. But the problem is you have to nitpick when it comes to him, because he's lived a life outside of the basketball court, an exemplary life, and something that he does not have those, like I was saying earlier, those skeletons in the closet. He doesn't have those issues that hold many of these other great players back. I mean, that's something that people forget, and he's held himself to a level and standard off the court just as much as he has on the court. And I know I'm coming off as this LeBron lover and whatnot, but I just appreciate the value.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean,
I'm just trying to call it like I see it.
Yeah, I made a comment when we were talking about on LakerHolics.net. We were talking about LeBron's legacy, and the comment that I made was that there's very few superstars out there whom I think are actually better people than they were basketball players. And LeBron James falls into that category as far as I'm concerned.
And anybody who goes ahead and flaunts Taco Tuesday, it's all right with me. All right with me. Well, before we head on out, I wanted to go ahead and talk to you a little bit about the NBA. They were thinking about heading back to selected team practice facilities under, heavy restrictions and all that, social distancing guidelines and testing and yada, 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 the whole 9 yards on May 1st. They've since bumped that back to May 8th. What does this say about a possible return to action for the NBA?
Well, it's interesting. In addition to bumping it back to May 8th, and the word that came out was that it was this move back to May 8th wasn't because a lot of teams were complaining, and they weren't complaining just because they thought the Atlanta Hawks might get a weak jump on everybody else. They were complaining because they were worried about the players' safety. And so there was a whole bunch of other things that came out along with that May 8th date for they're going to consider, and it included the players, other than when the players are on the court playing, everybody else is going to have to wear masks. They're limiting the number of people who can be in the gym at that point in time. It's like one executive and one team representative besides the trainer and the coaches and so forth. They're talking about specifically that there's no way that they want the NBA to be creating a public relations disaster by using tests that are now still scarce for first responders and so forth. So there's lots of questions about the whole testing situation, that they're not going to be sitting there and taking away tests from essential organizations that need them and so forth. So there's a lot of talk that this is probably going to delay things because they'll look at it on May 8th. And I think this falls in line with what Adam Silver said earlier, that he didn't think until we even got into May that he could be in a position to look at what the options were. However, I still believe that the league is committed to wanting to open up and have a season in some form and playoffs in some form, no matter how long it takes and no matter how late it goes. And that more and more then pushes you to looking at next season not even starting until December. So we'll have to see what happens. We're all going through this major giant experiment now with 3 or 4 states pushing the envelope and opening up certain activities, whether it's restaurants or barbershops and nail salons, masseuse parlors and so forth. I don't know how you're going to get a masseuse 6 feet with 6 feet of separation.
You really can't.
You really can. I mean, I just went out and decided that, Christ, I'm going to have my wife cut my hair. So I just ordered a set of clippers from Amazon, just because I'm figuring that I'm not going to get into the barbershop anytime near, and I don't want to risk it. And I think that's what we're going to find is that there's, 80% of the people in the country now are in support of continuing the shelter in place rules, at least through the end of May. And that as long as you're going to see 75, 80% of the people in favor of that, you're going to see very few people showing up for restaurants and so forth. Part of the new normal is going to be that that occupancy of restaurants is going to go down dramatically. I mean, I looked at some of the seating charts that they are proposing for airplanes and seating charts they're proposing for restaurants. And you've got to presume that the first time that we have to see sporting events, there's going to be very similar seating charts. The stadium that holds 40,000 may only hold 5,000. And it may be limited like that to start off with. So it's a very difficult thing. I think that we're probably looking at Labor Day used to be the artificial end where they thought they had to finish the season before you get to Labor Day. I wouldn't be surprised now if the season was to finish before they got into October. And I think it's going to change the schedules for all major league sports. Baseball, you look at baseball, they're talking about putting the Yankees in an entirely new division just because their spring training is in Florida rather than Arizona. And all of a sudden the American and National League and where your home city doesn't matter. It's where you go to spring training that's going to determine what league you're in. So I don't think we've seen anything you know, a lot will depend on what happens with these experiments going on in Texas and Florida and Georgia. You know, when if we can get by those things, and it's really a crapshoot that they're taking chances here with people's lives, because I mean, I don't, and I've talked to a lot of people and friends in California here, Northern California, and nobody feels like jumping on an airplane or going to a concert or going over to the local restaurant for dinner. Everybody's pretty much set that, you know, we might expand, and all of a sudden I might be able to see my son and my grandchildren, you know, who live 2 doors away, and we may expand our little quarantine, if you will, to include 7 or 8 people. But we're not going to be going out in public. I'm not going to go and sit in a barber shop and 2 feet from 1 foot from somebody and breathing and having them breathing on me while I cut my hair and so forth. I just don't see that happening. You know, I mean, you were going to see more and more things delivered, and I think we're going to see more and more. A large part of the population now is learning how to work from home, and I think we're going to see more and more of that. I think the new normal could damn well look a lot more like today than it looked like a year ago.
Which would be disappointing, but it is a reality of what is now the current state of our.
Until we get a vaccine, I think that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I agree. Well, before we head on out, my friend, I want to go ahead and let you get an update to everyone out there about what's going on with LakerHolics.net. So we've got a couple minutes left. So fire away, LakerTom. What's going on?
We've been working on a new site. The original site is 8 years old now, and is using technology that was 8 years old. Unfortunately, there hasn't been anything similar to create the type of site that we have, and so we've really been breaking new ground and trying to use some new technology to do it. And it's been pretty successful. I've gone through 2 or 3 different developers. I finally found a guy in India, basically, a young guy who's just been really sensational. And I'm expecting that we will be having beta testing of the new site probably next week. I think by the time that we have the next week's podcast, you'll probably have a new login for LakerHolics.com, which is where the new website will be. And I'm hopeful that we'll get everything ironed out and be able, I would say by the end of May, to have the new site up and running and everything. I've been duplicating most of the posts that I've been writing in Medium on the new site and so forth. We've gotten most of the main pages set in there. I'm envisioning. We're also looking at a new page in Facebook for LakerHolics, and actually very excited about the new video sharing program that they have, where they can have 50 people just log in, and you don't have to be a member of Facebook or anything. You can all log in, and we're planning on building a game sharing experience on one of those on the Facebook site where LakerHolics could just all log in together, and you'd have 40, 50 people be able to watch a game together. So we're looking at all sorts of different types of features that we're going to try to expand on to that. The new site will have very much of a lot of areas to share videos, share music lists, share family photographs. We want to try to create more of a community that is, while it's anchored on being Laker fans and diehard Laker fans, most of us have spent a lot of time and we know a lot about each other. A lot of us communicate and via email and so forth. I've gone to Laker games with half a dozen of the people on the site. We know a lot. We rally around each other's problems and family issues and so forth. And so we want to try to build a community that is Lakers based, but expands on just trying to share more than just our Lakers stuff with the rest of the people on the site. So it's all going real well. I'm really pleased with how the site is,
I'm losing you, LakerTom.
how well it's coming together, and each what it will have, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Once again, that's Lakerholics.net. For now, we're going to be transitioning into Lakerholics.com. Be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.net. And for us here at the Lakers Fast Break, I cannot thank you enough for listening to us. If you have any questions, please go ahead, catch us on the Twitter. I can hear you now. Yeah, you're cutting out still, but I can hear you now. If you have any questions for us here at the Lakers Fast Break, go ahead and send it to us on the Twitter at Lakers Fast Break. For LakerTom,
Gerald?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Think I lost you, LakerTom. Think I lost you. You still there? Well, for us here at the Lakers Fast Break, I want to just go ahead and say thank you for listening. You can go ahead and send us any questions that you want on the Lakers or the NBA at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter, or also as well, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com. You can reach LakerTom on the Twitter if you have any Lakers questions for him. That's at LakerTom, of course. And you can also go ahead and head over to the great site. Right now, it's Lakerholics.net. But like Tom said, by the end of next month, it is Lakerholics.com. Before we head on out, I also wanted to go ahead. If you like what we do here at the Lakers Fast Break with all of our other great shows on the NBA draft, whether it's 2020, the mock draft that we did, all the great interviews that we've done this month in April on the NBA draft coming up with Michael Weisenberg, Stone Hansen, and Rafael Barlow. Plus, again, the mock draft that we did has been a huge success for us, so we cannot thank you enough for listening. I did one recently this week with Stone Hansen on the 2021 draft, and I've got more great NBA draft programs coming up in the not-too-distant future right here at the Lakers Fast Break. So go ahead, check it out. But please, if you like what we do, like, subscribe, share. Please tell a friend. Any kind of support you can do for us right here at the Lakers Fast Break is greatly appreciated. I've got one last thing to tell everybody out there before we head on out, and that is congratulations. You haven't heard him on the podcast for a little while, and that's TJ Johnson, because he's been kind of busy, not only with work and all that, and not only with his other stuff that he does for Voice from the Underground, the podcast, but a big congratulations to him as a new father, because this weekend he became the father of Trumaine Johnson Jr. So TJ Johnson Jr. has come into the world, not exactly at the greatest of times, but you know what? In this dark times that we have in the pandemic, there's some bright lights that are out there, and Trumaine Johnson Jr. want to go ahead and say welcome to the world on behalf of all of us at the Lakers Fast Break. Well, LakerTom, it's been great having you on again. Any last thoughts on the way out?
Nope. Looking forward to a lot of action this week on the site, and we'll see what happens with the feedback from what the Lakers are doing at this point in time. I'm hoping to hear more about what happened for the money that they took on the loans, and hopefully that have somebody come up and make a good explanation and make amends for that.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're already lining up right now. They're taking shots. They're in line right now, going ahead and taking shots at the Lakers. And I'm not going to say it isn't deserved, because it is, because that was some poor evaluation there, a really bad PR move. But we're going to go ahead in this really, really strange season that the Lakers have had. This is just one more notch on this truly strange season of some really dramatic highs and really dramatic lows. And we're going to continue to present it right here, wherever it goes, wherever this train is going for the Lakers in 2020. We're going to keep right on it right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.